Hi, everyone. This is Choosing a Different Future with Siris Rivas. I'm Siris Rivas-Verdejo, and I have one of my best friends in the world on this show today. I finally wrangled him to get on the show. It took a little bit of convincing, so hopefully y'all will enjoy him as much as I do. I'd like to introduce Derek Salagan. We met in Michigan at an event called Lakes of Fire that we can talk about a little bit more. You might have heard about it. It's one of those regional Burning Man events. If you haven't heard of Burning Man, woo, we're going to talk about that. And so had a great time. I've known him for years now, 4 or 5 years. And he is a man of many skills and talents. I don't want to say Renaissance man because that's even too limiting. That's how many skills and gifts he has. He continues to blow me away, from playing multiple instruments and knowing about instruments that I've never even heard of, to he works for Nissan doing 3D modeling. He teaches lighting and rendering at the College for Creative Studies in Detroit. He's a pyrotechnic for Ace Pyro and many, many other things. And if he hasn't already tried it yet, he probably is on his way. He always has multiple projects going on, building things and painting things and crafts and hanging out with people, and then there's not to mention all of the leisure activities that he does. So would love for y'all to say hi, and if you watch this video in the future, to my friend Derek. You want to say hi?
Hey everyone.
So Derek, one of the things that kind of surprises me each time, and I just shake my head, is every time we talk, you're like, oh, I'm doing this project, I'm doing this thing, la 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 la. And you don't really get how gifted you are, that this is not everyone does all these different things that you do. When did you start realizing and acknowledging, oh, wow, I really do a lot. I really can do a lot compared to a lot of other people? Was there ever a moment that kind of struck you?
Kind of. It still happens that I don't feel like I quite do everything that I could do. So there's still that feeling it's not like I do a lot, I do things. I may do more than other people, but it's not necessarily for me a lot. But I do just like exploring different avenues and trying to do whatever's new. Basically, I'm excited by anything. So I want to try out new stuff all the time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's one of the things that I really enjoy being around you, is that you're always really curious. You're up for any new adventure and things like that. Do you encourage that in your students at all, that exploration and play?
Basically all the time. So when I teach, all of my students, I'm consistently trying to get them not to just learn how to do something, but why the thing works, and learning how things work as opposed to just 2 + 2 = 4, but why 2 + 2 = 4. Then you can use that to figure out why 3 + 3 = 6, not just knowing that 2 and 2 is 4. So you kind of learn the basics, and then that helps you get into more stuff. And that's what's more intriguing. When you figure out the basics, it's like everything else kind of builds from there. So you can kind of pique their interest by saying, this is why it works. And then it kind of forces them to figure that out.
Do you have any examples recently of a student that got kind of lit up by one of those aha moments of you guiding them and showing them both the basics and then the stuff that they could create from those basics?
Yeah, the last assignment that we are working on is a glass render. So I do lighting and rendering for myself, but then I also teach it at the College for Creative Studies. So I go over how to light things properly and how to make them look realistic so that they interact with the real world. And one of the assignments is glass, because glass is not just light bouncing off of an object, but it's light bending through an object.
Mm.
So I show them and explain why light is doing what it's doing. And it's kind of like the straw. When you put a straw in water and you look at it in the glass and it looks like it's broken, I explain what's happening and all that other stuff. And I remember some of my students, when I showed them a piece of work that was like, hey, this is all rendered, and there was a bunch of gasps because it looks so cool. And then my favorite part is when I show them and then explain how everything works and how they go about it. And then when they do it and they get that render that looks like glass, they have like this giant smile on their face. They couldn't be happier. Like it looks amazing. And they're like, I did this.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's a
a
lot
great
cooler.
moment. I love
Mhm.
that with my students, so I totally get that. Like, it looks different because they're often younger than your students, and it's other like tasks like, oh, being able to say a certain sound for the first time, or answer a question, or oh, they have a produce a sentence that's fluent for the first time, and when they've always been stuttering all the time. But that whole like, wow, that's possible, like, how does it get any better? Like, I just, ooh, that's one of the things that I'm like, I live for that.
Mhm.
And anytime I've heard you talk about your students, I know that that really lights you up. And as much as you're really busy with all your projects and things, I love that you keep making that space and time to keep studying and yourself and adding to your skill set. And then also teaching your students in addition to having full-time work. So when you're talking about 3D rendering, is this all on the computer? Like, what does that look like? Because you're saying that the light's going through things and how it reflects off, but what are you actually creating the rendering?
Um, so the rendering is, it's all on the computer, and it's basically like the easiest way to explain it is when you watch Pixar, that is what I teach. So there's a different aspect. There's modeling, which is the creation of the characters themselves, and then there's the lighting and rendering, which makes the light occur on the characters, kind of like real life. Like we could model something, and then if it's in the dark, you can't see it, but it
Yeah.
exists. So my aspect of what I teach is how to light and show things like they would be in real life, and kind of adding a little bit more to it because it's art and you want to
Maybe express yourself.
yeah, a little bit more dramatic lighting per se. So it's kind of like anything that you watch, Pixar, DreamWorks, that stuff. Like that's the 3D rendering that I teach.
Cool, cool. So what got you, and actually, I don't think I know this. We've talked so much about your work, but I have a question that I don't think I've even asked you before. So what even got you into 3D rendering and modeling?
Uh, Probably I was when I was young. It was when Toy Story first came out. That was the first feature-length 3D animated movie. And I went and saw it with my neighbor. They were like, "Hey, we're gonna go watch this animated movie." And I was thinking cartoons, Lion King, Pocahontas, all the movies that we had seen before. And I went to the theater and saw this, and it was like my head exploded. I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" It was the coolest thing I had ever seen. So that was probably my first step into I want to do that because I
Yeah.
had been drawing at the point. Like I was already an artist. Like I drew and did random like assorted building and stuff like that. So I kind of knew I wanted to be in the art field, but then when I saw that movie, that was the first step to, oh my God, I got to do this. And then there's video games and all the other fun stuff. Because I initially went towards video games, but then decided to just kind of broaden the horizons to everything.
Huh, that's so cool. And I love that you still keep adding new things with that. So here you are, you're teaching the students, and do they apply it in a lot of different fields? Like, what are all the different fields that that are using 3D rendering or rendering and this lighting concepts that you're teaching them about?
It can be used in multiple different fashions from movies, so like Pixar, DreamWorks, stuff like that, and it can also be used in video games. So every 3D video game that you play, even on your phone, is all rendered out. It can be used just for visualization purposes. I have mocked up 3D models and then rendered them just to get an idea of color choices and stuff before I build the actual model. So my arcade, for example, before I built that and bought all the little buttons and everything for it, I modeled it in Maya, the 3D program that I use. And then I can apply colors to it so I can visualize it in 3D and with everything next to each other as opposed to just in my head because I have a vivid imagination, but sometimes it's not always the best.
Yeah.
So when I have it in the 3D program, I can see it right in front of me and I can put colors on it. And if I'm like, oh, that orange isn't quite orange enough, I can modify it until it looks perfect before applying it to the final build where it'll be that way forever. So
Yeah.
it can be used in that sense. A few other things you can 3D print
Well,
little
you did
toys.
that costume, that
Yeah.
headgear piece that I've seen. Um, so, and then you actually had it so it fit your head exactly, which
Hmm.
is amazing. like to the centimeter or something like that. So are people using it in movies like for costumes as well as just the actual visuals that we see in movies?
It can be used to, like, for what I did. I took a Xbox Connect, which is just something that can scan data, and I modified it so that I could scan my head. So I got a 3D model of my head that was accurate to size, and then modeled around it so that this mask was form-fitting to my face exactly. So the mask is kind of meant only for me. It could fit somebody if it had a very similar face, but it is modeled specifically to my head.
And I
So
love how you're saying this, and I'm just gonna say for the future people viewing this, like, this is what happens when I talk to Derek. Like, he'll say these things like as if it's, oh, it's so easy. Like, oh, I just adapted this device to do this other thing that it's not meant to do, but it just does it because I adapted it. Like, as if it's a simple, like, you know, walk in the park. Like, I'm waiting for you when you actually take a break and a pause from teaching and all your other projects and trips and things to start your own YouTube channel and your own show, to like these little videos to show people how to really do this stuff, because it can be simple, because I love hearing you explain how it is, but when you just describe it like that, it's like, I don't get that I have the skills to do that in these 10 seconds, but it's so cool and fascinating. And one of the things that I love, so when we're talking about costumes and things and how you created this with the rendering, so where we met, just to back up a little bit, is we met at a regional Burning Man event. And Burning Man is a national event that happens in the desert in the United States, in the Southwest. And they create a city of 65,000 people in the desert with like generators and lights and doctors and volunteers and security. It's like a full out city. And everyone goes out there to relax, to connect, and they have these 10 principles, like gifting. There's no commodification. So like there's no selling of goods and things like that. There are people there who are gifting food. People bring their own food. There's the self-sufficiency, there's a civic duty, there's a bunch of different principles. And I haven't gone to the national one in the desert yet, but Derek and I, we met years ago at the one that's a regional one called Lakes of Fire in Michigan. It's a little private camping ground called Lucky Lake Camping Ground. And I was there with my then partner, who was a fire whip performer, and he was cracking whips. They weren't on fire, I don't think, at the time. Were they, Derek? The first time we met?
No, they weren't on fire.
Yeah, but there was like a 20-foot bullwhip or something like that. And so these are the kind of amazing people that I'm around. And hopefully one of these days I'll be able to get him on the show as well, because he's also an amazing photographer. But that's how I met Derek, where we were just like goofing around and geeking out over the sound of whips cracking. And then we started talking, and we've been friends ever since. So lucky to have that. And so one of the things with Lakes of Fire is there's a lot of really different people there. And they create this effigy where it's made of wood and all these different things, and they set up fireworks that come out of it, and it's different at Lakes of Fire every year depending on the theme. And I think that some of the people that create the effigy, many of them are engineers, many of them are craftsmen of different kinds. Do you get the sense, have you ever heard that any of them are using modeling or rendering to get an idea of what that's going to look like? Because it always seems to go off without a hitch. So far, it's been amazing. And we actually burn up the effigy the last night of the 5 nights that we're at Lakes of Fire. But have you heard about that?
Yes, because I'm on the effigy build team this year.
I'm asking the right person. You see, this is news to me, folks. This is the first time I'm hearing this right now. So that's really cool. And so are you going to be using your skill set with that, or are you going to build it in a different way?
So far, there's only a mock-up sketch. I'm not allowed to talk about what it is or anything like that. Yep. But so far,
there's hush-hush, people. Very hush-hush, okay?
You don't know what it is until you're there.
Uh-huh.
But we have the mock-up sketch. I'm not sure if I'm going to do any modeling for that per se, but I know in the past, with Marvelous Contraption and a couple of the other ones, it was done in a 3D program. and it was mocked up first before going to the final build. So I know that that happens. I don't know if I will be doing that for this, but I do have another project that I'm doing, and it is a Stegosaurus that's going to be made out of metal with poofers. And if anybody doesn't know, a poofer is a propane fireball that shoots out of a tube, basically. So it's a really big fireball. And
You
there's
see,
going to be a
in
Stegosaurus.
England, in the UK, well, I have a lot of friends there. Poofer does not mean that, or maybe it means that and something else. It means like a sometimes affectionately said, sometimes in a derogatory way, a gay man. And so this is a different kind, folks. And it's so cool to see. Like, I love the sound of when the fire goes off. I love seeing it. Like, I love fire so much. That some of y'all maybe don't know that about me. And so anytime I'm at Lakes of Fire, the fact that everyone's like playing with fire a lot, like they do fire poi and they're cracking fire whips and they have fire swords. There's so many instruments, fire fans. What am I forgetting? Fire staff.
There is fire everything at Lakes of
Anything you
Fire.
can imagine, they have like fire stuff. Like there's that. What is that one that the dragon one, dragon poi, where it's a big one and then they throw it out like a chain, like in the Kill Bill chick, but it's like that big metal ball that's instead of a big metal one, it's not metal, it's Kevlar, and it's lit up on fire.
Yeah, rope dart.
Yeah, there you go, the dart. That's what it's called. Oh, so apropos. Oh, fire is so awesome. So how was your experience in your first year of Lakes of Fire, and as you're evolving now? It's been a couple years. You've been going every year since that first year.
Yeah, it's been 5 or 6 in a row.
Yeah.
However long we've known each other.
Right, right.
Yeah, the first year was very different there. I remember when I came in and everybody was saying welcome home, and it was kind of throwing me off. And I wasn't the biggest fan of it initially. I'm like, no, this isn't my home. But
I remember that too. For me, I was like, what are y'all doing? Like, do you know who I am? Like, what's going on? It wasn't off-putting, but it was definitely an adjustment for me as well.
yeah, it threw me off guard, and I was like, oh, I'm getting hugs, which I'm fine with. So I was getting hugs, and everybody's just saying welcome home, welcome home.
And they always ask before they give hugs, which that's
Yes.
a big deal. You always have to ask and get consent for everything there. So you don't take someone's photo, you don't hug them, touch them, anything without them saying yes. And if you know them already, they might already have an implicit yes. But if it's new people, for sure, you're asking. And it's very much, they reprimand you, and sometimes more if you don't follow those principles.
Yep, everything consent, no matter what, which is really nice because it makes you feel safe.
Yeah.
And not like anything's going to go wrong. And it's a very loving bunch of people.
Yeah.
And I drove by this big heart that these people were setting up, and I was like, oh, that's really nice. Set up camp. I wasn't really sure what to expect. We walked around. I kind of checked out all the art. There was a lot of really neat stuff. And then when the sun went down, that place transformed. And it became like more alive, lit up. Everything was glowing. And it kind of was this really unique experience. And I still remember certain songs that I heard from live performances that still click me back to that memory. But after my first Lakes of Fire experience, it made sense. And now every time I hear welcome home, I immediately think of Lakes of Fire. And that is no longer this odd saying, like, I can't wait to go home.
Yeah. And we say that all the time. Like, now that I'm in Savannah, it's a thing. People travel from all over the world to go back to that event. It's a very intimate one, especially compared to Burning Man, which is 65,000. Lakes of Fire is only about 2,200. Sometimes more or less, depending if people have an emergency last minute and can't come or something like that. It's super affordable. You're on a lake. You're in this closed off property that people can't go in and out. As soon as you're in, you're in. And you're camping and you're hiking and you're bike riding and you see all this amazing artwork. Like they get art grants for all these different artists to build all these different things, and they're commissioned to create these beautiful, inspiring pieces of art of all different kinds of art. And, you know, being raised by artists, I love that. And also having so many artist friends like Derek, it keeps expanding my world as to what other kinds of art there are and the different forms it can take. And it's one of those things that, like, the 5 days fly by. There's a lot of really cool experiences. They have classes and workshops, and you get to try out all these different things that you wouldn't necessarily try out before without being there, like food, but also like the classes. There's a lot of really like different topics. There's even like a red light district where you can like find out and do like sex topics and things like that, and erotica, and play that way. There is a medical camp. There's a lot of different theme camps, and so people are walking around in different costumes, but also like they have like furries and tails and headgear, and there's just a sense of generosity there that is so genuine, that you feel like there's nothing ever about you that's wrong. Like there's nothing you can say that will be like, oh, like you need to go away. Like everybody's just like, they're like, that's cool, man. I'm glad you're happy about that. Like they might not be my jam. It's not like what I like, but like go for it. Do you? Or like they're like, oh, let me know if I can help you with that. Or, you know, something. But they're so willing to listen to you and receive you there that like some of my favorite people in the world I've met at Lakes of Fire, including Mr. Derek here. But that's just the vibe for the whole experience. And then you get to commune with nature and, you know, really turn off your cell phone. That's the other thing too. Like only in the last couple of years that we actually have any kind of a Wi-Fi signal out there. And I kind of miss when we didn't have a Wi-Fi signal at all. That was kind of nice. Our first year or two, we didn't have a Wi-Fi signal. But one of the things that I loved about being there is people were choosing different. Everybody there, like things that were like kind of like you'd think were oxymorons, or that they were completely dichotomous, that they couldn't even exist in the same place. They were there. There were scientists and researchers. There were people that are artists, and they're, you know, their mothers. There's kids that come. There are people who are topless. There are people who are fully clothed in fur. They're like the whole gamut. There are people that love the water and all the sports stuff, and then there are people that just want to like hang out in their camp in like a cave the whole time. And all of it is totally fine with everybody. It's like, okay, do you, as long as you're not hurting anybody else, it's awesome. It's really
That's one of the really nice things about it is that I know a handful of people that it's gotten them to break out of their comfort zone. And the reason that they got to break out of their comfort zone is because that place is so accepting of so many things. And it made them feel comfortable enough to, like one person was skinny dipping. They had never been like at all topless or bottomless in front of anybody. And they felt okay to skinny dip there. And that was a big thing for them. And there's been like other cases, but it's just so many different things of people doing things that they might not normally do. And it's basically because the community is so welcoming, caring, and loving, and it's okay to do that.
Yeah.
Like nobody's gonna scoff or make fun of you.
Or shame you in your body, like all this stuff, because there is quite a bit of nudity, and there's no body shaming. Like I haven't experienced it or heard of any reports of it when all the years that I was there, and that's kind of unheard of in this world. Like even like for my family, if you were really skinny or if you had a big butt or if you're really fat, no matter what body you had, you were criticized for it. It's like, oh, you've gained all this weight. Oh my gosh. Or, oh my gosh, you need to eat something. You're starving. You're so skinny. It was like you could not win. And there you show up, and whatever body you have, it's like, hey, beautiful. Hey, would you like a hug? Hey, would you like some barbecue? Would you like, a shot of this whiskey? Like they just give you all these things. But the biggest thing is this level of like receiving all of you that is so, so beautiful.
It's an amazing place.
I'm really glad you're going to get to go there this year and contribute to it in a different way, because it's completely volunteer based. That's the other thing. It's this huge you know, 2,200 people is still requires a bit of, you know, organization, quite a bit of organization and all these different things. And everybody volunteers and does all the different aspects to have this run smoothly. And it's been going on for almost 15 years. So pretty amazing. This shoot off, branch off of Burning Man. So for you, so did you still feel different there, even though everyone was kind of like welcoming you, and has that shifted over the years?
What do you mean, did I feel different there?
Like different in a way that was like you judging you.
I more so felt like I could be me.
Mm.
Mostly because, well, my first time there, I felt kind of leery. So I wasn't necessarily being me. It was kind of like, okay, got to feel out the situation. I mean, it's what I do when I meet anybody new anyway. I'm fairly more laid back, and I got to assess the situation. But now when I go there, I know that I can be me, and I'm not going to hurt anybody. Like, so what I do is whatever I want to do, whatever I want to be, and it's great because I can wear my skirt and walk around, and I can take it off, and it's fine. And I have the weirdest getup ever. I wear a skirt and a cowboy hat with a military sling.
It looks great. Like, I wish y'all could see photos of this or see it in person. I think it looks phenomenal. It's like a purple, like, gypsy skirt. It's not just any old skirt. Like, it's really awesome, which is also connected to some of your ethnic heritage.
Yes.
As well. And it's an honoring of that, which is really awesome. But like, yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of get-ups there. So have you found that to be the case anywhere else outside of lakes? Like, now that you discovered that at lakes, has it translated or generalized to other places for you, so you have it more year round, or is you still developing that?
After kind of expressing that at lakes, I have found more people, or not even just found, but realized more people that were accepting of it. Because I've had people in my life that, like, I didn't know, and I guess it's because I didn't delve too much into their lives. But there are other groups of people, like Theater Bazaar, for instance, and those groups of people, I3, where it's more artistic group of people rather than anything else. And they're more accepting and forgiving of oddness and strange.
And brilliance, because it's all of that difference that you be and all those gifts that you have, and your difference and oddness is, I think, freaking brilliant. But that's just my interesting point of view. I'll let the people speak to that. But could you speak to what Theater Bazaar is? Because that's one of the things that was so cool we got to do together. I was like, oh my God, this is one of the best things ever. A couple years ago now, at the end of October, Derek invited me to this event that they have over the course of 2 weekends that's connected with Theater Bazaar. And he tried to explain it to me. You can't really grasp it unless you experience it. And I highly, highly recommend that you experience this, and you go and the tickets get sold out fast. So just so you know, like, you got it, as soon as you hear about it, you got to jump on it. But like, I'll let Derek explain it a little bit, but it's also, he's been working with them and knowing of these people from his experiences being like circus trained. Yes, who do you know that's worked in circuses? And he's a pyrotechnic. And so when I love fire, I think he loves fire even more than me, which is saying something. And he actually knows how to play with it even probably with more safety and more carefully than I do. But explain what Theater Bazaar is.
Okay, so Theater Bazaar started out as a handful of friends who had a house in Detroit next to the state fairgrounds. And they had a Halloween party. It was a couple of people that loved Halloween. And then every couple of years, like, they would invite more and more people, and this thing kept getting bigger and bigger. And the people that loved Halloween just so happened to be artists, and they happened to know people that were carpenters and builders. So they built stages and different kinds of booths and stuff like that until it ended up becoming a ticketed event where they would start selling tickets. And your tickets included the price of beer, and people would come, and they had stages where they had freak shows, burlesque, different kind of oddities, flame performances, so people would spin poi. And it got bigger and bigger and bigger until they started buying more and more lots. And then they owned a handful of lots all next to each other in Detroit next to the state fairgrounds. And the party got so big that they were requesting people, they was Granholm that they were talking to and trying to see if they could get the parking for the state fairground, which closed down, so they weren't even using it. And Granholm said no, and they were pushing for it because they were trying to get people to come to Detroit.
Yeah.
They were they were really pushing for bringing people to Detroit, and it was bringing people from all over the place. And Granholm kept saying no, and we kept pushing for it. It was a vacant lot next to the state fairgrounds, but they ended up coming and searching all of our stuff, and they said that we couldn't pass out beer, but we said we weren't selling it. And they said it was included in the price of admission, so technically we were selling beer, so we didn't have a liquor license. We missed fire codes, and there was tripping hazards, all sorts of stuff, so they shut it down. So they were basically upset with us for putting on a party. And none of the money's going, it's not being taxed, none of the money's going anywhere, so they were upset.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, Fox took us on for that year. But after the Fox, we have it at the Masonic Temple. It is there, and it is still there. And basically, it is 8 floors in the largest Masonic temple in the United States, the oldest and largest in the United States.
It's so freaking awesome.
And we occupy 8 floors from the very basement all the way up to the 8th floor that has different things. Each floor has a kind of unique setup. So there's a crystal ballroom, which is a giant room that has games like carnival games. There's Down the Clown and Poison Darts, fortune telling, a big stage with live bands. There's a dance floor right above that. Then there's a burlesque floor. There's a sex floor. There is the auditorium and the asylum with all sorts of different kind of crazy acts. Fire performances everywhere, costume people. The event is costume mandatory.
Yeah,
so,
that's the thing. Like they won't even let you in.
Yep.
Like, and there was like Derek warned me, and I brought it, y'all. We'll have to post some photos about our costume that year together. And Derek has a bunch from all the other years he's been going there. But I brought it hard. It was great. And they straight up turned people away at the door. It didn't matter they had purchased tickets. They're like, nope, you're not in costume. Bye. They're really strict about it, and it's actually kind of awesome because you got to see all these different ways of people dressing to the theme and sometimes not to the theme in really like just wow. So, like the people watching alone at this event is amazing, let alone all the experiences and the things you get to see and just the music you get to listen to. There's like plays and skits. It's really fun.
Yeah, it's I mean, how many times has anybody been to a Halloween party and then there's, the plain old person that's like, oh, I'm not dressing up. That's like above me.
Mm-hmm.
And then this place, everyone's dressed up. So no matter what, and there's some kind of lame costumes, but at least everybody's dressed up. But there is some amazing costumes.
Yeah.
That people poured their heart and soul into.
Yeah, like they'll plan it all year long.
Yeah. People, after Theater Bazaar, people will consistently be like, okay, what am I doing next year? What am I doing next year? Because they got to get a head start on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, even mine have come to like the very end of like, oh, it's just getting done and it's just done enough to go. Ours was a lot of fun because we made all of our stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the best
kind of hodgepodge.
Yeah.
What was the theme of our year? Do you remember?
That wasn't the Great Deception. That was...
I have the ticket for it here somewhere. I have it saved. I could probably find it, but it's something with like end of the world or something, I think, if I remember correctly. And yeah, either way, it was phenomenal. Yeah, that's a better lighting. Thank you. It's getting dark over here too. We're on the East Coast, both of us, of the United States. But yeah, no. So there's just so many different options out there. So, given all your experiences, we can keep talking. This is why Derek's one of my best friends, is that we can talk for hours, and we have. But so we'll have to. If you're up for it, Derek, I would love to have you back on the show again. I do have one last question for you.
Yeah.
Given all your varied experiences, meeting people from all over the world and having these artists and these really creative, different folk that have a different perspective on things, like, what would you like to see in the world? And what could we choose, individually or all together, that would create that you can think of?
What do I want and what could we do to create it?
Yeah.
It's kind of almost going back to that Lakes of Fire thing where I would like people to be more accepting and forgiving of things. I mean, and I say forgiving in the sense of not like, hey, you did something bad and I forgive you for it, but in forgiving in the sense of, hey, that's not my thing, but it's not hurting anybody, so you do you.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of forgiving, because I mean, it might not even be forgiveness, but it's like suspension for me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a taboo subject, but I'm not hurting anybody. I'm not hurting myself. I feel like I'm actually bettering myself. It makes me happy, but it's a very taboo thing to bring up to anybody that doesn't understand it. And they
And there's some people
immediately,
that will never understand it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I understand that people won't understand it too.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I can explain my head off for days all about it, but my experiences are going to be different than somebody else's who might explain it. And it's going to be confusing at that point when everybody explains all these different reasons. But
And a
I'm
lot of
not,
things that bring us the most joy are completely irrational, and you can't cognitize it or explain it. It's just what you'd like to choose, just what works for you.
mhm.
Yeah.
And
So just to clarify for people who don't know what suspension, what he's talking about, because there's a lot of different kinds of suspension.
yes,
There's like in construction and things like that. So he's not choking himself with rope in a closet or something like that. Like he's actually talking about having different parts of his body pierced with hooks and then actually being elevated off the ground in different ways. And he's had a couple different kinds of suspensions now. I've been around for some of it, which is cool, and I've gotten to see photos and things as well. And one of the things that I love about our friendship is that there's stuff that I like that Derek absolutely does not like, that he just doesn't get. He's like, well, okay, tell me what you're doing right now. And there's things that he does with the suspension, and yet we know we can tell each other all this stuff and that we have each other's back. And I was like, did you have fun? Great. Send me photos of you smiling. And things like that. So I agree that would be wonderful to see in the world. And also, what can we choose that would create that as a future, that could potentially create that as a future?
I feel like we could just hear each other out, listen, be aware of other people and what they're choosing and why, and not take your own account and base it on theirs.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't just
Project
be
it
like, hey,
on.
I don't like that, so you're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So it's listening, and if it's helping a person, then let them do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So basically, just listening.
I love that. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. So y'all, please go ahead and send Derek any questions, because we touched upon a lot of different things that are just all over the gamut in life experiences. Thank you, Derek, so much for honoring me with your presence on this show. I know you're really busy, much like all of our other guests, and I definitely wanted people to have to know of you and all the different things you've done and all the other ways that they could play. And we didn't even talk about half of the things that you do and that you play around with. But if you have any questions for Derek, go ahead and post them below the video, and also his contact information will be in the description of this video. If you like this video and all of our other videos, go ahead and subscribe to our channel here, and you can go to Choosing a Different Future at choosingadifferentfuture.com to submit other guests. If you think, oh, you should have this person on as your guest or this person on as your guest. What's really great is that we're just do this and we pre-record it all. So far, maybe it might change the format in the future, but I would love to talk to some other really interesting, cool people that are choosing something different and inviting us to create a future that's way more fun, way more interesting, and that is full of a lot of amazing people. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And until next time, see you.
Bye.